We need to read.
1, 2, 3.
Reading unlocks the door to a world full of information.
It's interesting how...
And for many of us, it's a source of pleasure. Do you remember learning to read? How uneasy you sometimes felt when you couldn't recognize the words? And how successful you felt when those lines of print began to make sense? Learning to read is a challenge, but with practice, we eventually improve. Naturally, people who can read want to help people who need more practice. But although tutors always have the best of intentions, they don't always go about it in the right way. Here's what I mean.
Hey, look, this is on fighter pilots.
Oh, I'm not really interested in fighter pilots.
Hey, this is great. CF-18s, mission on the range. Hey, Frank, this is easier than it looks.
Well, I kind of like football.
Come on, let's go read.
Not just any pilot can fly a fighter plane. Modern planes are very complex.
Oh, okay, just sound it out.
Machines.
Machines? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Machines.
Machines.
Okay, let's just continue with the next sentence.
Canada's air defense.
Is it any wonder Frank is frustrated? His tutor is asking him to read material he isn't interested in and to sound out all unfamiliar words, even words as irregular as machines. Here's another example of good intentions gone wrong.
One morning, Matthew woke up before his mother did. He went into her bedroom to see if she wanted to play.
We had that word yesterday.
Didn't. It's not even 6 yet. She told him to go back.
There's no 2 there.
Go back to bed.
Come on, Rachel. I have to go and pick Mark up from hockey.
Sleeping.
Frank and Rachel are not enjoying their reading practice, even though their tutors mean well and probably believe they're doing what's best for them. For reading practice to work, it has to be a positive experience for both students and tutors.
Okay, we'll start here.
1, 2, 3. I was mad at myself too. Moon had always seen.
A positive approach is the basis of paired reading, a reading practice technique that's centered around students and their needs and interests. Paired reading is a low-stress method of reading practice. Student and tutor always begin by reading together in duet.
In line in cafeteria or waiting for the washroom
Faculties. And I swore. Facilities.
Good. And I swore in a very unlunar fashion.
Ready, Travis? Go. Sally.
When the student is ready, he or she reads solo.
High school. Good. Sally met Jim. Jim was older than Sally. He worked in a gas station. Jim and Sally fell in love.
Good.
Jim.
Then reading practice moves naturally between duet and solo reading.
What if he should laugh at her secretly and think she was a coward? Well, anyway, she could.
Paired reading is student-centered.
Right now.
Here's an article I want you to help me read.
Okay.
Students decide what they're going to read, when they want to read solo, and if they'd like to practice a little longer on some occasions. In fact, the control that students have over their own learning is a key element in the success of the paired reading technique.
Okay, let's see how we put it together.
When students choose what they want to read, novels, magazines, sports stories, newspapers, even comic books, then they're more enthusiastic about reading.
Hey, look. It's on fighter pilots.
Oh, I'm not really interested in fighter pilots. I like football, though.
That looks interesting. Come on, let's go read it.
Mrs. Wobble the waitress.
Don't worry if the text seems too difficult or too easy. On a difficult piece, you'll do more duet reading. On easier material, the student will do more solo reading. And at any time, the student may decide to change the reading material.
This one looks good.
Yeah, let's read
You want to read this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
To get started, first you need a commitment. You should agree to a practice plan that has you reading for 5 to 10 minutes a day, 5 or more days a week, for at least 8 weeks. Choose a time that won't conflict with any other important events, like a team practice or a favorite TV show. It's also important to set aside a quiet place for reading.
Okay, Geneva, we're going to try a new way of reading today. Some of the time we'll be reading together, and some of the time I want you to try and read on your own a little as well, okay? But first I want to tell you that I'm...
In the first session, the tutor explains what paired reading is and how it works. The tutor stresses that he or she will help with difficult words. Now let's go through the steps to see how paired reading works. First, sit so that you can both easily see what you're reading. Decide on a starting signal so you both begin reading at the same time. 1, 2, 3 is a common signal. Either of you can say it, and then you both start reading together.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. On Christmas morning, Bitsy brings out a menorah. It belonged to your great-grandmother, she tells Jason and me. Even though
Couldn't be anything unpleasant along this road. And just as the thought crossed his mind, they passed through a heavy stone gateway.
If you get out of sync, simply stop reading and begin again using your starting signal.
Sniffing contentedly at the wind. I really can't see what Doctor Discord. We're out of sync. Let's go from the beginning here, okay? 1, 2, 3. I really can't see what Dr. Discord was so concerned about. There certainly couldn't be anything unpleasant along this road. And just as the thought...
Sometimes it's easier to stay together if one of you finger points along the line or uses a clear plastic line guide. The goal during paired reading is for the student to say each word correctly. If the student mispronounces, stumbles on, or omits a word, stop. The tutor points to the word and says it correctly. The student repeats the word, and you continue to read together.
How agreeable and pleasant this valley is, thought Milo, as once again they bounced along the highway, with the humbug humming snatches of old songs to his own vast amusement and top.
Remember to be non-critical and supportive in correcting mistakes.
1, 2, 3. Once Matt had fully dedicated himself as a retriever, our hunting expeditions became pure joy. I looked forward...
One of the strengths of this technique is the ease with which solo reading evolves out of duet reading. When ready to read solo, the student simply gives the tutor a signal. The signal to go solo can be anything from a tap on the book or the shoulder to a nudge with the elbow, just as long as it's easy to recognize and doesn't interrupt the flow. A quiet fine or good praises the student's decision to read solo and shows that the tutor is pleased with the effort.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Could you bring me a glass of water? The woman asked. She was sitting at table 6. Good.
I'll be with you in a moment, called Julie. It was a busy night at the restaurant.
Great.
Julie was doing the best she could.
As the student continues to read solo, the tutor keeps up a steady stream of quiet, supportive feedback.
Julie would get off work at 4 o'clock. She would rush home. She would cook Bill dinner he would never forget.
While the student is reading solo, the tutor follows along silently to make sure that all the words are said correctly. If the student struggles with a word, the tutor waits 4 seconds. If the student doesn't make the correction within that time, the tutor points to the word and says it. The student repeats the word, then you return to duet reading. Here's how it works.
Kids, that's what I'll do. Good. We have a quiet Christmas and a sad Christmas, although each of us
pretends.
Good.
To be happy. Pretends to be excited by our gifts. Underneath, we are all thinking the same thing.
Use the same procedure if a word is omitted or mispronounced. So that's the pattern and the flow you want to achieve. Duet reading, moving into solo reading, and back into reading together when the student makes an error. Reading for meaning is one of the cornerstones of this approach, so it's important that you pause and discuss what you've read. This could be after a paragraph, at the bottom of a page, or at the end of a chapter.
Cap, have you thought about talking to one of the staff psychologists?
Yeah, good. Do you know what that is? Psychologist? Okay, a psychologist is a kind of doctor that helps you if you have problems like mental problems or emotional ones. You can kind of go and talk to them about how you're feeling.
So sort of like a shrink?
Yeah, right. And
of course, the student should feel free to stop reading at any time to ask questions or talk about the content. Take the time to feel comfortable with the signals and procedures. Once you relax, it will seem natural to talk about what you've read.
This is one of my friends got a t-shirt with this picture
Oh,
on
really?
it. Yeah, and it's like, I want him to get me one too. So
yeah, for sure, that would be neat. Get me one too, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's neat.
A clear procedure, a positive approach, an emphasis on reading for meaning. Students in control of much of their learning. With children, paired reading helps foster the relationship between home and school. Children read in the classroom, and practice at home helps broaden their reading experiences and build their confidence. Those special minutes of relaxed and supportive reading time with mom or dad each day can go a long way toward helping the child grow as a reader. Paired reading allows teens and adults to practice reading without fear of criticism or failure. It recognizes their need for reading practice and allows them to choose materials that match their life experiences. Today, more than ever, it's vital that all of us learn to read and read to learn. Paired reading is a practice method that can help us on the journey toward lifelong reading. Before we take another look at paired reading in practice, let's review the main points of the technique. First, you need to agree on reading times and commit to them. The student chooses the reading material and may change material at any time. Find a quiet spot away from distractions. The tutor explains how the technique works. You need to agree on a starting signal. Then begin reading together. Non-critical correction of errors works best. You should agree on a signal for the student to read solo. Praise the student when the signal is used. Continue to offer supportive feedback as he or she reads solo. Correct mistakes, then return to duet reading until the student signals to read solo again. Remember to relax and talk about what you've read. Now, let's see some examples of paired reading in action.
Okay, we'll start here.
1, 2, 3. I was mad at myself too. Moon had always seemed to me the best place in the whole solar system in which to grow up. Now, all of a sudden, everything seemed to have gone sour. I found myself getting edgy as I stood in line in cafeteria or waiting for the washroom facilities. And I swore in a very unlunar fashion when the metered amount of shower water was used up before I was through, leaving me standing in the shower stall covered with soap suds.
Okay, good.
My 6-foot square sleep cubicle was like a prison, and I began to feel that I would, that if I ever saw another green painted wall or ceiling, I would go into a space frenzy. There must have been enough green paint on Kepler base to cover the whole ocean of storms.
To color
The whole ocean of storms. I kept thinking about the cozy living room down on Conshelf 10.
Conshelf 10.
Conshelf 10.
Good. With its crimson drapes and cushions and the wonderful flame-colored rug that Aunt Janet had hooked. I even talked about it to Anne. I felt that maybe she would understand. She stared at me as if I were out of my mind.
Hook a rug? Why in the world would anyone want to spend valuable time doing that?
Good.
What would be the use of it? The floor is always comfortably warm down here. Does everything have to be useful? Once in a while, couldn't we just do things because they're fun? Because it feels good? She thought about it carefully, her face grave. Then, Cap, dear, she usually didn't speak to me so gently. Cap, have you thought about talking to one of the staff psychologists?
Right. Do you know what a psychologist is? What that means? Okay, a psychologist is a kind of doctor that helps you if you have problems like mental problems or emotional ones. You can kind of go and talk to them about how you're feeling.
So sort of like a shrink?
Yeah, right.
Can we continue reading this one? Because we never finished it, so.
You're right, we didn't finish that one, did we? Okay, let's go back to this one then, the Phantom Toe Bruise. And we were with Milo on his trip to...
Bremen. to see, find rhyme and reason.
The princesses?
Yeah.
Okay. And they was going through all this land in his electric car, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. And he got to the Silent Valley. Okay. Any idea what might be happening in this chapter?
Maybe there's no noise at all. Like it's
absolutely still?
Yeah. And
Okay.
no, there can't be any noise.
Can't be. Well, the electric car wasn't making too much noise anyway. Let's see what else happens.
Okay.
See if the noise cuts out. Okay. 1, 2, 3. The Silent Valley. How agreeable and pleasant this valley is, thought Milo, as once again they bounced along the highway, with the humbug humming snatches of old songs to his own vast amusement, and Talk sniffing contentedly at the wind. I really can't see what that's my mistake. How about starting this bit again? Okay, 1, 2, 3. I really can't see what Dr. Discord was so concerned about. There certainly couldn't be anything unpleasant along this road. And just as the thought crossed his mind, they passed through a heavy stone gateway, and everything was very different. At first, it was difficult to tell just what had changed. It all looked the same, and it all smelled the same. But for some reason, nothing sounded the same. I wonder what's happened, said Milo. At least that's what he tried to say, for although his lips moved, not a sound came from his mouth. Good.
And suddenly he realized what it was.
Great.
For Talk was no longer ticking, and the humbug, although happily singing, was doing so in complete silence. The wind no longer rustled the leaves, and the car no longer squeaked, and the insects no longer buzzed in the field.
Good.
Not the slightest thing could be heard, and it felt as if in some mysterious way,
a switch had been thrown, and all the sound in the world had been turned off at the same instant. The humbug, suddenly realizing what had happened, leapt to his feet in terror, and Talk worriedly checked to see if he was still keeping time. It was certainly a strange feeling to know that no matter how loudly or softly you chattered or rattled or bumped, it all came out the same way, as nothing.
How dreadful, thought Milo as he slowed down the car, and the three of them began to talk and shout at once with absolutely no result until, hardly noticing where they were going, they had driven into the midst of a large crowd of people marching along the road.
Great.
Some of them were singing at the tops of their non-existent voices.
And the others were carrying large signs which proclaimed, "Down with silence, all's quiet is no diet. It's laudable to be audible, more sound for all." So what's happening here then?
Well, they're protesting because they don't like all the silence in the valley.
Yeah. Why don't you think they're yelling it out loud?
Because they can't hear them.
Can't hear them anyway. So they got to have these great banners. This one, it's laudable to be audible. I love that one. Tell me, do you know what laudable is?
No.
I think it means it's praiseworthy to be heard.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, these people are desperate to be heard. They've obviously been in this state for a long time.
Okay.
When the car had stopped.
Hi, Marta. How are you today?
Hi, Lorraine. Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. What did you bring in?
Some newspaper and some books.
Okay. What do we have? Sports section.
Hockey. Okay, what do you feel like reading?
The Tiger Eye.
Okay, looks like you've already started. Do you want to just keep going
Sure.
with that one then? Okay, why don't you pick up where you left off then? Okay, why don't we start at just the top of the chapter here?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. On Christmas morning, Bitsy brings out a menorah. It belonged to your great-grandmother, she tells Jason and me. Even though Hanukkah fell early this year, we light all 8 candles and recite the Hanukkah blessing. Good.
Then we go into the living room and open our presents, which are under the tree.
Good.
It is nice to celebrate both holidays, I think. If I ever had kids,
Good.
That's what I'll do.
Right.
We have a quiet Christmas and sad Christmas, although each of us
Pretends.
Good.
To be happy. Pretends to be excited by our gifts. Underneath, we are all thinking the same thing. It is our first Christmas without Daddy.
But
Good.
we don't talk about it. Betsy and Walter had invited some people in for Christmas dinner.
Very good.
The 2 men from the lab, both of their
Divorced.
Good.
And lonely. A single woman they have known for years. And a young kindergarten teacher who belongs to Bitsy's Tuesday night group.
I think it is nice that Betsy and Walter have asked these people to join us, even though the kindergarten teacher drinks too much wine and gets silly.
Good.
And I don't like the way one of them divorced man keeps looking at my mother.
Very good.
The night when the company
has left, when the dishes have been washed and dried and put away, I go to my room and take my father's present out of the trunk.
Daddy,
Good.
This is for you. I light up 5 wicks of the candles and watch as the new Mexican sunset disappeared.
Good.
Merry Christmas, Daddy. I wish you were here.
Good.
It's 15 minutes. In 15 minutes,
There is nothing left. Nothing at all except a pile of wax. Good.
The next day it snowed. It sit in front of the picture window in the living room watching the flakes fall. My breath made the glass foggy.
Good. Really good. Back at the beginning, that word, Hanukkah, when we read it, do you know what that is?
Holiday.
Right.
Christmas holiday.
Right, it's a Jewish holiday, but it falls at the same time as Christmas.
Okay.
And in the story then, do you know which of those holidays they're celebrating?
The Hanukkah and the Christmas holidays.
Right, they're doing both together.
Okay.
Okay, good. Should we keep going then?
Sure.
Okay, why don't we start reading up here then?
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.